Your brain is not wired for happiness. It is wired for survival. And until you understand that difference, nothing you try is going to stick. This is not pessimism. This is neuroscience. Your brain has a built-in negativity bias that was designed to keep your ancestors alive by constantly scanning for threats, problems, and danger. And it worked brilliantly for thousands of years. The problem is that same ancient survival system is now running inside a modern life that has no tigers, no famines, and no genuine daily threats, but plenty of emails, social media, financial pressure, and comparison. And your brain treats all of it like a predator. The result is a brain that defaults to stress, worry, and dissatisfaction, no matter how good your life actually is. A brain that notices everything wrong and slides past everything right. A brain that is genuinely, structurally biased against feeling happy. But here is what changed everything for me when I learned it. Your brain is not fixed. It is not permanently wired any particular way. Neuroscientists have confirmed that the human brain remains physically changeable throughout your entire life. New neural pathways can be built. Old ones can be weakened. The technical term is neuroplasticity, and it means that with the right habits done consistently, you can literally rewire your brain for happiness at a structural level. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly 3 habits that rewire your brain for happiness. Here is something that should stop you in your tracks. Neuroscientists at the University of Wisconsin studied the brains of thousands of people and found that happiness is not a personality trait you are born with or without. It is a skill, a measurable, learnable, trainable skill that shows up as specific patterns of neural activity in specific regions of your brain. People who reported consistently high levels of well-being showed stronger neural connections in areas responsible for positive emotion, resilience, and present moment awareness. People who reported chronic unhappiness showed weaker connections in those same areas. But here's the critical finding. When unhappy participants were taught specific mental habits and practiced them consistently, their brain scans began to change. The neural connections associated with happiness literally grew stronger. Their brains physically rewired over time in response to deliberate practice. This means your happiness level right now is not a ceiling. It is a starting point. And the 3 habits I'm about to share are the specific practices that neuroscience has identified as the most powerful drivers of that rewiring process. So here's exactly how this works. Habit number 1, negativity interruption. And it works by directly weakening the neural pathways your brain uses to default to stress and worry. Here's the biology. Every time your brain thinks a negative thought, it strengthens the neural pathway associated with that thought. Neuroscientists describe this with a phrase worth remembering. Neurons that fire together wire together. The more you travel a neural pathway, the more automatic it becomes. This is why chronic worriers find it increasingly hard to stop worrying. Their worry pathways are deeply grooved from years of repeated use. Worry has become their brain's path of least resistance. Negativity interruption works by doing one specific thing. The moment you catch a negative thought cycling, you physically say the word stop, either out loud or firmly in your mind. Then you replace the negative thought with one neutral or slightly positive observation about your immediate environment. Not a forced affirmation, not toxic positivity, just a redirect. The ceiling is white. The air is cool. That coffee smells good. Research in cognitive behavioral neuroscience found that this simple interruption and redirect technique measurably weakens negative thought pathways over time, while simultaneously strengthening the neural circuits for present moment awareness and positive attention. You are not suppressing the negativity, you are literally rerouting your brain away from it. Here is your action today. For the next 24 hours, every time you catch yourself in a negative thought loop, say stop internally and name 3 things you can physically observe right now. Not what you feel, what you observe. This single habit, practiced consistently, is one of the most direct ways to begin rewiring your brain for happiness at a structural level. Now, the next one builds on this in a way that most people completely miss. And once you understand why it works, you will never think about your attention the same way again. Habit number 2, deliberate savoring. And it is based on one of the most important discoveries in modern happiness research. Your brain processes positive experiences differently from negative ones by default. Negative experiences are processed immediately and stored in long-term memory almost instantly. This is the negativity bias doing its job, making sure you remember threats. Positive experiences, on the other hand, are processed more slowly and require deliberate attention to fully transfer into long-term memory and strengthening the neural circuits associated with positive emotion. 20 to 30 seconds. That is the gap between an experience that rewires your brain and one that simply passes through it. Here's your action. Once today, when something genuinely good happens, even something small, a moment of warmth, something that made you smile, a feeling of quiet satisfaction, stop and hold it consciously for 30 seconds. Do not move past it. Do not immediately return to your task. Stay with it. Let it fully land. Feel it in your body. Notice where you feel it physically. This is not indulgence. This is neuroscience. Here's the crazy part. Most people are living full lives with genuinely good moments happening regularly, and their brains are barely recording any of them. Meanwhile, every frustration, every disappointment, every stressful moment is being stored in vivid detail. Deliberate savoring rebalances this equation, and, done consistently, it is one of the most powerful habits that rewires your brain for happiness that exists. Now, number 3, and I want you to really pay attention here because this is the one that looks the least impressive on the surface, but has the most profound long-term effect on your brain structure. Stay with me. Before we get to the third habit, let me ask you something that might feel a little uncomfortable. When was the last time you did something purely because it was enjoyable? Not productive, not educational, not self-improving, just genuinely enjoyable, just for the feeling of it. For most adults, the honest answer is not recently. And not because they do not want to, but because somewhere along the way, enjoyment started feeling like something you earn after you finish everything important. Which means most people never quite get to it, and their brains pay a significant price for that. Habit number 3, intentional play. Now, everything I have shared so far is important and backed by real science, but this third habit, this is the one that changed how I understand happiness entirely, and I think it's going to do the same for you. The third habit that rewires your brain for happiness is intentional play. And before you tell yourself that sounds childish or impractical, hear the neuroscience out completely. Dr. Stuart Brown at the National Institute for Play spent decades studying the neuroscience of play across thousands of subjects of all ages. What he found was remarkable. Play, defined as any activity done for its own enjoyment without a specific outcome in mind, produces a unique neurological state that no other activity replicates. During genuine play, multiple brain regions activate simultaneously, including areas responsible for creativity, social bonding, emotional regulation, and long-term memory consolidation. The brain during play is not relaxing, it's doing some of its most sophisticated work. But more importantly for our purposes, Dr. Brown found that regular play produces measurable changes in brain structure over time. Specifically, it strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for emotional regulation, rational decision-making, and the ability to experience positive emotions fully. A brain that plays regularly is literally better at being happy. And here's what happens when adults stop playing, which most do somewhere in their 20s. The prefrontal cortex receives less stimulation in the specific way play provides. Emotional regulation weakens. The capacity for spontaneous joy decreases. life starts to feel heavy, rigid, and increasingly joyless, not because anything is objectively wrong, but because the brain has lost a critical source of the stimulation it needs to stay flexible and emotionally healthy. Here is your action. Identify one activity you genuinely enjoyed as a child or young adult that you have completely stopped, not because you consciously decided to stop, but because life got busy and it quietly fell away. It doesn't matter what it is. Drawing, playing an instrument badly, cooking something experimental, playing a sport just for fun, building something with your hands, reading fiction, anything done purely for the enjoyment of the doing. It's neuroscience. It's your prefrontal cortex receiving exactly the kind of stimulation it needs to grow stronger and more capable of the sustained happiness you've been looking for.